Well, welcome back to another episode of restoring this old rally Dolomite. And I know it's been a very long time since I worked on this, and that's been for a number of reasons, the virus being one of them, and of course the welder not coming around. And well, the welder has been and welded on the dolly, so I can actually start working on it again. So let's have a look at that welding. Now, a lot of this welding has been to do with strengthening a weak area, and where this chassis rail sort of comes up here seems to be a bit of a weak area where the subframe bolts on. So there's a bit of strengthening, which was done a while back, but he's had to come back and finish. And also, if you have a look here, this here is like a tube where a big bolt goes through to hold the subframe on, and that broke away and what have you. We've also, there was a crack up here. This chassis rail seems to just come and end there, so I've put this on but welded up the crack that was in under there and put this extra bit on there. This is the corresponding other side of that in the engine bay. Welded that great big washer there, and also did some strengthening. Passenger side seemed to be where all the problems were. Over here on the driver's side, done much the same sort of things, but it didn't really, well, it needed it because, you know, but it didn't need it, if you know what I mean. Also a little bit of strengthening here where the subframe bolts on. There was sort of signs that that was bending, and the seam there was also coming apart, so that's been welded up. So doesn't seem much. Was about 3 hours or so work, and all that delay, and now it all starts. The only other area to be welded was in here in the passenger floor. There was a little rust hole about 1/2 inch round, so welded a plate over that. You may have noticed with all that there's no attempt to hide what's going on here. I'm strengthening and what have you, and plating up where it was cracked. And this is not a concourse car, this is a rally car, and I don't mind a rally car showing its history, if you like. So there's no great sort of attempt to repair this sort of work and make it look like it never happened. You know, it's happened. The car is old, it's had a hard life, and I don't mind it sort of showing its history. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is put some etch primer on the bare metal. It's just pressure pack can of etch primer, then some primer surfacer after that, and then just a pressure pack can of yellow paint. It's not Dolomite yellow, it's just yellow paint. It's going to get covered up again, so it doesn't matter. It's just more like an undercoat, I suppose. I know I'm not doing this the way it's supposed to be done, but it's just the way I feel should be done. It's my car, so I do it my way. Who matters? I like to get things sealed up. Once I've painted it with the yellow paint, then I'll be seam sealing around the plated areas, except for the top edge. It's not continuously welded, it's just welded here and there. Then I'll prise that little edge open a little bit and try and get as much fish oil down in there as I can. Then I'll tap it back and seam seal all the way around. Then it will get a bit more of this treatment, and then ultimately Dolomite yellow over the top of it all. Look, whether that all works is anyone's guess. But anywhere where you've got a double thickness of steel, you've got potential for rust sort of thing. So I need to get some fish oil in there to sort of stop that. Now this Dolomite, all the way along the sill, it's basically got another sill sort of welded to strengthen it all up. And that was done a long time ago. In some places you'd say it was hard against the bottom part of the sill, and then when it turns up underneath the car, it's a little bit away. And I drilled holes in the sill so that when I fish oil into the top of the sills, the fish oil goes through those holes and into the double thickness area sort of thing. So far there's been no rust, so but it spends most of its life in the shed, doesn't it? So let's get on with it. Well, now it's time for a second coat. This will be just primer, and we'll see how that goes. Like so many jobs on this car that I'm doing at the moment should have been done 30 years ago. But when you're using a car all the time, motorsporting it, and for a long time it was my road car as well, and you just needed to keep it running. And so sometimes you'd sort of come across something that you didn't like, and you'd sort of, I'll do that, you know. Or it might be something you sort of can't do until the motor's out next, and then you forget when the motor's out next. In this case, it's just the way the car is made, and all the Dolomites are like this. They got this nice little dag of metal where the panels meet that sticks out like a knife point, and when you stick your arm down in the engine bay, it reefs a great big cut in your arm. So the grinder is going to attack that sharp edge and get rid of it. And that's all it took. Maybe 30 seconds of grinding to solve something that's put a few gouges in my arm over the years. Why didn't I do it a long time ago? Anyone's guess. Well, time to put some yellow paint on. This is just ordinary old yellow paint, it's not dolly yellow. It's just to seal it up. And then after that it'll be the seam sealer, then the fish oil, then more seam sealer, and then more paint before ultimately dolly yellow. My goodness, if I'd known that that commonly available can of yellow paint was close to dolly colour, I would have been using it under the guards and in the engine bay and all those sort of underneath touch-ups for years and years, instead of mucking around with proper dolly yellow and spray guns and everything. Pressure pack cans are just so much easier, and it's a bit more yellowy, but it's, geez, it would have done for under the guards all the years just to freshen it up every year. Anyway, onward to the next job. Well, the next job is to seam seal a few bits and pieces here and there. Now, I've only ever used seam sealer once before on the poor old Mark 1. The stuff I got then was absolutely brilliant. It was not like a silicone, it was more like a bog, and it just sort of went on with a putty knife, beautifully smooth, and you could sand it later after it dried, and it done the job and is still doing the job. Now, that was some years ago, and of course, like everything, you go off to buy the same thing again, and they look at you with two heads and sort of think, what the hell is he talking about? Anyway, I got sold this stuff. It suspiciously looks like silicone to me, but so this might well be this is not what I want exercise, so let's give it a go and see what happens. Well, this stuff's turned out to be the right stuff. It is a silicone style product, I suppose, but it's easy to use and goes on, and so I've silicone seam sealed everywhere except this edge along the top here, because I can get fish oil in these gap here and just run it in, and with the seam sealer will hopefully keep it from running out and basically fill the panel up. Then I tap that back a little bit, seam seal that up, and then ultimately paint it yellow. And just a bit of a side here, while I was seam sealing just here, that bit there, well, that whole sort of chassis rail thing is again another bit that I've done over the years. The original chassis rail, I sort of hit bottom hard somewhere and crushed it, and so I just made up a whole box section that went over the top of it, just like the outer sills have been done. So there was a bit of a gap there, so I seam sealed that up as well. Now the yellow, the camera might pick it up and might not, that yellow pressure pack can paint is so close to dolly yellow. When you take into account that the paint on the inner guard here has been here for quite a while and faded and changed colour as it ages, my goodness, I'm tempted to just use the pressure pack can to tidy this up when I'm finished, rather than all the mucking around with spray cans, with spray guns and what have you, and cleaning them up and everything else that goes along with it. So anyway, we'll see. Well, let's see if we can get some fish oil into behind these panels. Hopefully this will do something. I'm not sure, given this car lives in a shed most of its life and doesn't see a lot of driving, and probably given the various problems associated with registering a rally car now, there's a good chance this car is going to sit in a shed in retirement like me, looking pretty, a trophy to my past. So I'm not sure the fish oil is necessary, but you never know what might happen in this life. That's about it for, I think. Let's move on to the next bit. Now, with the fish oil in there, it's time to get some seam sealer across the top of it. Oh, the smell of fish oil in the morning. That's right, it's the next day. Let's see if that seam sealer's dry. Well, first job today is to just put some primer over the top of this seam sealer. Well, it's time to put some colour on. Let's get on with that. Well, that's the repairs. They're not hidden, they're very much on display, but it looks pretty good to me. Repairs and strengthening of the poor old dolly. Here in the engine bay, the major repair that happened to this chassis rail here is all done. Seam sealed, painted, all looking pretty good. As is the strengthening that happened just here. As is the other side chassis rail, and the corresponding strengthening over this side of the car as well. Well, that brings us to the end of another exciting episode of restoring this Triumph Dolomite Sprint rally car. Tune in same duck time, same duck channel for more mechanical mayhem on the poor old dolly, when you'll see me put the motor and gearbox back together and generally prepare the whole thing for going into the car. Bye for now.